Yo, Wanico, what's up, bro?
What's up, bro? How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Dude, doing fantastic. Week's getting started. Hopping back in the gym. I've kind of been off my game the past few weeks, but yeah, I'm just stoked to start the year off strong and yeah, just be posting a lot more consistently on Twitter and just like, hanging out with you guys more. So I'm just stoked to, yeah, just to get this year going.
I'm surprised that you say you've been off your game the past few weeks because, like, from my perspective, like, you're going crazy on Twitter, especially like you're kind of transitioning from this guy who is just like a video editor for
Mm-hmm.
Dickie Bush, which like that's what really caught my attention when I saw your profile originally. It's like, whoa,
Mm-hmm.
this kid is doing big things, and now
Mm-hmm.
you're like transitioning more into writing. So how's that like? How's that been?
Dude, it's been honestly so fun because, well, I hopped on Twitter February of last year when the whole Ukraine thing was going on. And yeah, I was just, I would scroll a few minutes every day when I was at work. And one day I stumbled on Dakota's like 97 sentences that'll teach you more than, an English degree. And I read that and I was like, holy crap, this is so good. Like, this is all really
Yeah.
good writing advice. And I kind of went down the rabbit hole and then I found one of Dickie's threads and I was like, whoa, like, what is this side of Twitter that I haven't seen? And I was just consuming content like all throughout last year. So from February to like July. July is when I said, okay, I think I would like to hop in and share my thoughts in photography, videography. And I think I posted my first tweet like July 2nd or something. And I was so nervous, bro. Like the moment I
Yeah.
tweeted that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Like I feel like everyone's looking at this tweet, everyone's gonna critique it, like big time imposter syndrome. And I kind of just let it go and just kept consuming. And yeah, once October hit and like once, things with Dickie Bush started working out and I just kept consuming more content. I started to kind of see the patterns and spot the way that everyone was doing things, right? The way that you format the tweets, like how you break it up into different thoughts. And that's when I slowly started to feel more comfortable just putting my stuff out there. And now I'm at the point where I kind of get how the game is played. I just need to play
Yeah.
it long enough until the results come in.
Exactly. And that's like the turning point for me too. Like once you realize like it's actually kind of a game, like there's a
Mm-hmm.
formula to all this, that's when
Mm-hmm.
things start to click and then you pick up momentum. And it's weird because like at the start, I had that same feeling, bro. Like I remember before the first tweet I sent out, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking like, what are my football teammates going to think of me? What are my
Yeah.
coaches going to think of me? Because I had just stopped playing a couple months ago and
Mm-hmm.
like they were all still following me. Like I didn't start my Twitter from fresh. I actually started it from like when I was playing football.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had that same thought, like, what the hell are people gonna think about me, bro? It's a scary thing at first, but once you just overcome that initial fear and you just push through it, it's like, okay, this is actually really fun. And then you
Dude,
treat it like a video game.
exactly, bro. It is such a video game. And like, so for me, when I first got Instagram, I was like 16 or something. And
Mhm.
uh very quickly on, like I started to realize, okay, certain posts do better than other posts. Like if I take a photo of, a landscape or just a cool location, it's not going to do as well as a photo of me or me with my friends. And I kind of started to hyper analyze Instagram and I grew to like almost 1,000 followers in a few years. But my whole perspective with it was this is just a game and I'm just learning how to play the game. Or Quora. I was writing on Quora when I was like yeah, like 15 or 14. And after a few answers, I was like, okay, I think I know what type of answers get the most votes. And I got up to like 500,000 views on my answers after like a few months. So like I treat every social media like a game. And I feel like finally Twitter is just starting to click. So it's now just reps, bro. It's all putting in the
Yeah.
reps.
It's all just reps and volume. Like if you stay in a game, like I mean, take a video game you played as a kid. Like I played a
Mm-hmm.
ton of NBA 2K, but I know
Mm-hmm.
a lot of my friends were playing like Call of Duty and everything. It's like
Right, right.
you level up, you prestige up, you get new equipment, you like reinvest money into the game, and like
Yes.
then you can spiral up the game. And these are all kind of like abstract words to describe what we're doing on Twitter, but it is true. Like using psychology, using frameworks, seeing what
Mm-hmm.
what went viral, what doesn't work. Like
Mm-hmm.
you can literally treat like every one of your tweets or threads as like
Mm-hmm.
a science experiment in a way. It's like, okay, this one didn't get a good engagement. Why? This one did. Why? And then you cut the bad, you stick with what's working, and then you just keep iterating. So
Right,
it's
bro.
a
It's
it's a
it's
fun game we're
so
playing.
fun, dude. It's so much fun. And like honestly, it feels very similar to when I first started working out because I didn't start working out like consistently until last semester of college. And I always saw people, at the gym or doing their stuff. And I was like, how does this work? How do they track their sets and reps? How do they know what exercises work? Like it was all the points were just loosely connected in my mind. And it wasn't until I started lifting myself and doing it consistently where everything just started to click. Like it's all about hypertrophy. Like it's not about necessarily using the biggest weights, but it's about breaking down the muscle, right? And doing that consistently every few weeks. And there came a point where I stopped just looking for the results and I just enjoyed the process, just going to the gym,
Yeah.
right? Beating up my body. Like that was fun. And that season was when I saw the most growth. And I think now it's like, okay, Twitter, same thing. I get how the game is played. And even if it takes me like freaking 5 years to do it, I'm enjoying it. It's really fun. So yeah.
I'm right there with you, dude. Like in the long-term mindset, because 5 years, that seems so long. And you could definitely like be successful or whatever your definition of success is in less than 5 years, like 100%.
Mhm.
But 5 years in the grand scheme of things is so small. Like I'm in this for life. Like this personal brand is going to stick with us for life, which is interesting because it's never been done before, Like we're entering untapped, uncharted territory, bro. Like
Bro,
in
yes.
traditional careers, let's say like an investment banking career, like a finance career, you can look 30 years ahead and be like, okay, I'm going to be in this senior management role. I'm going to be like, I would maybe want to be a CEO someday. You strive for that and you have
Mhm.
something to look at.
Mhm.
With this online creator stuff, like there isn't a model to look at. Like I'd say Dan Coe is like the model, like the pioneer
Yeah.
of all this. But if you think about it, like he's only been in it for 3, 4 years. So it's like, what are things going to look like in 10, 20 years? It's so exciting.
Dude, it feels like we're treading on, just like fresh ground. And yeah, like you said, Dan Coe, like everything that I'm doing about, regarding one person businesses and just growing the brand, it all kind of stems from his line of thinking. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because yesterday I was hiking with some friends and I was talking with a dude and he was like, "Oh, like what's your major?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm studying entrepreneurship." And he's like, "What do you want to do with it?"
Yeah.
And I said, "Okay, here we go." I was like, "My goal is to have a one person business." And he's like, "What the heck does that mean?"
Yeah.
And I started to explain it, and it's like this concept is so new and so fresh, right? Monetizing your passions and your interests and your hobbies and helping people that are a few steps behind you. It makes so much sense when we talk about it, I guess, between, in our circle, but to so many people that's so foreign because it's like
Mm.
you need, it's just so set in stone, right? You make money doing something that you don't necessarily love or enjoy. It's just work. But I think we're finding that middle ground where your work can actually be your play and it can be a little bit of both.
Exactly. And I think to an outsider or somebody who's not in it right now, like it sounds too good to be true in some ways. Like,
Hmm.
how are you going to monetize your passions, like work when you want, where you want? Like, it all sounds a bit too good to be true.
Hmm.
But once you just break through that belief and you see like other people doing it, like it's possible, then you're like, okay, why can't I do it? I
Hmm.
mean, back to when you started and found Dakota, that's
Hmm.
kind of how I started too, like stumbling down the rabbit hole. And when you first find a guy like, let's say Dakota or Dan Coe, you look at these guys as like, wow, like they're celebrities. Like I'll never be there.
Right.
But I just had a podcast with Dakota last Monday, like a week
Yeah.
ago today, and just an hour conversation with the dude. And you realize like he's just a guy, like he's just a guy like us. Now he's
Right.
obviously really smart and he's been working hard and killing the game. But
Hmm.
if one person can do it, like why can't you? And so
Hmm.
when you tell your friends this, because I'm in the same situation in college where like we're kind of going this unconventional path, but
Hmm.
everybody else doesn't really know about it. So like when they ask you about it, how do they receive it when you try to explain it?
So I've kind of modified my script a little bit because I'm just okay, how can I convey this to you in the most effective way possible? And I think I'm at the point now where I understand the concept well enough to kind of just use analogies. So okay, so for example, like you like to lift. So basically imagine you just take your lifting passion and you help other people who are behind you, you create courses, you create ebooks, whatever, and then you monetize that, right? So I've kind of just been relating whatever they do to the one person business so it's easier for them to grasp.
Mm-hmm.
But they react kind of just like amused, like, oh, like interesting. Like
Yeah,
I get how that works, but never heard of that.
right.
What
And
about
are they
you?
interested in, I'm curious, are they interested in like potentially starting or pursuing it?
No, like
Hmm.
they always just look at it from a distance I have yet to find a person who's been like, wow, like tell me more, like
Yeah.
that, where that clicks. And I feel like it took a long time for it to click to me.
Yeah. I feel like it's something that you have to reach the conclusion by yourself. Like you can't have somebody tell you it and then
Hmm.
like you need to see it for yourself to believe it. And you have to like get to that point yourself in terms of personal growth,
Hmm.
which is very interesting. But I've had a couple friends in college now who I'm in this program with who are kind
Hmm.
of like starting to think about getting in the game. Like
Hmm.
one of my friends, his name's Vic. He's like
Uh-huh.
just starting off on Twitter because
Yeah.
two of the kids in my program right now, there's 15 of us in this entrepreneurship program in San
Okay.
Francisco.
Nice.
My friend Abhishek has a Twitter account with 52,000 followers and like newsletter with 25,000 subs. So this dude has been in
Sheesh.
it for a while, like killing the game. I mean,
Hmm.
relative to him, I'm really new.
Hmm.
But within our friend group, they're seeing like what we're doing and they're like, okay, like this is interesting. So my friend
Hmm.
Vic just wrote his first thread like the other week, and I'm like,
Let's
this is so
go.
sick. Let's go. And so
Hmm.
I might start like training them or whatever to ghostwrite under me once I get that ramped up. But
Hmm.
it's fun. Like once you can kind of like pull these people out of the matrix in a way.
Yeah.
That word is overused, but it is kind of true. Because I feel like when I found Dan and Dakota originally, it was like being pulled out of the matrix. Once your mind is open to
Hmm.
like the possibilities of life outside this set path, it's like you
Hmm.
can't go back. You can't go
Hmm.
back.
100%, dude. Because it's like, it's those limiting beliefs that, oh, like it is impossible to make more than 5 grand a week, a month, if you're not working like 80 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I think it's what you said. It's seeing all these guys do it over and over and over again. Like I saw, Syed Hook on Twitter.
Yeah.
I saw him go from 1,000 to 24,000 in like a few months. I
Yeah.
saw Rob Lennon go from a couple thousand to over 50K. And now he's, dominating it with with all his AI content. And just seeing it happen on repeat, it's just like, okay, yeah, if they can do it, I can do it. And then
Right.
all and because at first you see people like Dakota and like Dan and like Dickie, and it's like they are so high up. I don't even know what the next step would be for me because I have zero followers. I have nowhere to go.
Mhm.
And that's where like meeting you guys and then meeting up with Matt and like because you guys are a few steps ahead of me, it is so helpful because I can look at what you're doing and it's like, dude, I've seen you go from 2K to 4K in the past few weeks, right?
Yeah.
Which just reinforces, okay, this is so doable. This is so possible to do. It's just time and pressure. That's all it takes.
Exactly. And finding those people who are at the same stage as you is so important because when you just look at the end result and see Dan Coe with 1 million followers, it's like, okay, I'm never going to be there. So like, why would I even try in the first place? But once
Hmm.
you find some homies like around your age, like around your interests that are
Hmm.
trying the same thing as you make group
Hmm.
chats, you hop in them, you talk in them every day. You
Hmm.
ask each other like, how are you moving the needle 1% today? That's what I love
Right.
about our chat. Like, because if I see all you guys talking like, oh, I wrote 3 threads. Like I had like
Hmm.
50 outbound leads with a client and I'm sitting here like not doing anything myself. I
Right.
can't live with myself. So I think
Hmm.
creating those accountability circles is so huge, bro.
It's huge, dude. Like that and the whole community aspect. I think I could not be where I am right now without like modern mastery. I
Mhm.
remember I was sitting in a microeconomics class, and so our class in micro, the professor basically just repeats exactly what the book says. So if you don't get the book, it's helpful, but if you understand the chapter, it's like, okay, I'm just, this is same old stuff. So I was just on my computer browsing, and I hopped on the landing page for MM, and dude, Dan is a master at writing, bro. Like he hooked me in with his copy, and
Yeah.
I was like frick it, I'll sign up, and I joined, and then I watched a few of the videos, breaking down his process for writing threads. And one day when I was supposed to be doing homework, I was like, okay, like I have all these notes I took from, Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference.
I've heard of it. I have not read it, but I've heard of
Dude,
it.
great book, super recommended.
Mhm.
So I took a ton of notes on the book, and they were just on my Apple Notes. And I said, okay, I'm just gonna take all these and turn it into a thread. So I was at the library here at school, and in like an hour and a half, I kind of just like drafted it up in TypeShare, posted it, and then I put on Modern Mastery. Hey, like, what do you guys think of this hook? How would you fix it? And then Dan was like, hey, maybe move this around here and there. So I did it. I posted it, and then Dan retweeted the thread, which brought like 120 followers, like instantly.
Yeah.
And that's like, that's when I saw, whoa, okay, like I see it now. I get it now. Um, but yeah, like without that community, without having people in your same age and in your same headspace doing those things, it'll be so hard to go from 0 to 1K and beyond.
Yeah, totally. I don't think it's possible to like be in this journey alone. I mean, it might be, but I think it would take a lot longer. You need friends and you need mentors and you need people pushing you.
Mhm.
And so somebody for you who I'm sure has been a big influence on you in the creator economy personal brand is Dickie Bush. And so would you mind just explaining like how did you start editing for this guy? Like that is such a crazy connection to have, especially at what you're 20 years old, right?
21.
21. Okay, so
Yeah.
21, you're already the video editor for one of the biggest guys on Twitter. So like, how does
Mhm.
this happen?
Dude, so this was, yeah, this was complete. It was crazy. Like I never in a million years saw it coming because Dickie's one of the first people that I followed, and his threads, I was just blown away. Like, oh my gosh, this guy is packing so much value. I'm receiving so much value from these threads. And one day, it was a Tuesday. It was I think first week of October. I finished all my homework early, so I was just, scrolling on Twitter, and I saw that he posted a thread talking about how he had just opened a YouTube channel, and he just went on Canva, made a quick logo, recorded his first video on Loom, and in the span of 20 minutes had a channel up and running. And he said, "Yeah, I'm going to update this thread and keep you guys posted." And I said, "Oh, that's super cool. Here's okay, crazy idea. What if I like pitch my services to him?" And I
Yeah.
said, worth a shot. I'd seen J.K. Molina post about, you have unlimited shots. When you're an entrepreneur, just take the shot. If it fails, whatever, you tried. So I spent about 20 minutes crafting a DM, and I was really trying to think, how can I communicate to Dickie that I have credibility, I have experience. Also, I don't want to come across as super needy, like, oh, like wow, like like I almost idolize this guy because yeah, I realize he's just a guy just like you and me who has a great work ethic. So how can I convey trust and authenticity and credibility with this DM? So I sent it his way, kind of just forgot about it. And then 10 minutes later, he replied and he said, dude, like, I'm in. Like, that's a great offer. 100%. Let's make this work. And as soon as I got that text, I was like, holy crap. Like this is crazy. Like, I never
Yeah.
in a million years saw this coming.
Life
And
changing. Literally from one DM, your life changed, right?
dude, exactly. And that was the first outbound DM I ever sent on Twitter.
And what was the offer that you pitched him?
So I told him, I said, hey man, I saw that you started a YouTube channel. By the way, I've gotten a ton of value from your threads. Like I really like the work that you do. And then I said, I have edited over 200 videos. I've worked as a video editor for the past few years. And I resonate with the stuff that you talk about in your channel a ton. And I would love to help you grow your channel. And then I said, uh, offer, I will do 3 videos for free. And then you get to decide if you want to work with me or not. And then I said, let me know if you find this interesting. Cheers. And that was it. So I basically just said, all risk on me, no risk
Yeah.
on him.
That's a great DM. Like for your first outbound DM, like that is pure like gold, I swear. How did you know how to craft like such an offer? Was it from you read $100 million offers, right?
I
By
did, bro.
Hormozy?
I
Is that where you
did.
got the framework from?
So it wasn't really as much like a framework as I think it was the mindset, because reading that book helped me understand it's all about how I communicate what I know and what I'm offering to the other
Yeah.
person. It's how does this sit in their head as they're reading it. So the whole time I really wasn't thinking, oh, well, here's my pitch, here's my, credibility, here's all this stuff. But it was just, if I was Dickie, what kind of DM would I want to receive? And that
Hmm.
that was my entire mindset throughout the process. And I didn't like, I thought like, yeah, 20 minutes about it and then just sent it, because part of me was like, bro, he's never going to see this. This is just, one in a million chance. But I mean, that's the way, yeah, that's the way it went.
That's a great way to look at it. And that's why I find like psychology so interesting and why I actually switched my major to psychology. Like
Yo,
you have to put yourself in the other person's shoes. Like
mhm,
imagine you were them. Like how would you want this message to be conveyed? And
mhm,
that's so it's such a cool story that like one DM has set you up like for potentially your future like being a video editor. But to start off, like before you ever reach out to Dickie,
mhm.
how long had you been video editing for and how did you get into that in the first place?
So my first recollection of making videos was when I was 9. Yeah, I was 9 years old, and we were at Barnes and Noble one day. And I don't know if you remember this, but there used to be these books called the Klutz books at Barnes and Noble, and they were like these super interactive, like arts and crafts type of books for kids. And there was one book that had like this film slate as a prop, and I was like, oh, that's a prop, that's interesting. So I looked at the book, and basically it taught you how to do visual effects without using your computer. So how to do stop motion, how to make those, those photos where the person looks really small because it's like perspective and they're really far away. And I said, oh, sick, this looks like a fun book. So we bought it, and I started making movies like around that age, applying the concepts from that book. And ever since that point on, like whenever my cousins would come over, friends would come over, I would get out, my little flip camera, my phone, and we would just make movies just for fun. And it's kind of a passion that I've had growing up, mostly as a hobby, never as a job. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until 2 years ago that I worked as a video editor. But yeah, it's just been with me kind of growing up my whole life.
That's so cool. And it's so cool how like a childhood hobby like that has turned into potentially like your career for the future. And I think that goes back to our whole point about like monetize your passions. And
Mhm,
I mean, obviously the Naval quote that I love is like find something that looks like work to others but feels like play to you. And
mhm,
as a kid, you're just playing around with these videos, creating and stuff. And
mhm,
I find that so interesting because I was like the same way. I used to draw and make stories and write books. And I
mhm,
completely forgot that I even had that passion for writing and creating until
mhm,
very recently. And it's like these inclinations that we had as kids, like that's
mhm,
our true self. And so how can we tap into that? How can you make that into a business? I used
mhm.
to actually funny story. I used to have a YouTube channel when I was like 12,
Uh-huh.
and me and my friends would post like basketball trick shot highlights. And
Oh,
like
dude.
so it's like that creativity like that you have as a kid. I think we tend to lose it when we get older because we get labeled as like one thing by society. Like we get labeled as, oh, I'm a doctor, or like I'm
Mhm,
a lawyer, or I'm a businessman, and we
mhm,
don't want to tap into these other parts of ourselves. But in reality, like we're also multifaceted. Like you're a video editor, like writer on Twitter, also like super into the gym and masculinity and habits. Like you're such a well-rounded, multifaceted person, and that's what makes you unique. And so I
mhm.
think if people could just tap into their unique, authentic selves, like that's how they could find their way into this creator economy potentially.
Exactly, bro. Because yeah, like you said, like, and Naval as well really opened this up for me was when he said someone who is doing this for play will always do better than someone who does it for work,
Yes.
because they can obsess about it and they're willing to put in the hours. And even as a little kid, I switched, like, quote unquote, my major growing up so many times.
Yeah.
So I was homeschooled for a large part of growing up, and my parents were super good at like noticing what my passions were and nurturing those. So they said, "Oh, you like video? All right, we're gonna help you get a camera. We're gonna help you find, tutorials and teachers to teach you how to do video." And I credit a lot of what I can do now to them, like noticing that and supporting that from an early age. And I was really super into, okay, like I want to do 3D animation. I want to be an animator for Pixar, for DreamWorks. And then the next week I'd say, no, I want to be a game developer. I want to create games. The next day I'd say, oh, I want to be a film director. And I could never stick to something for
Yeah.
for a long period of time. I was always switching interests. And I realized I just want to do everything. I don't want to just box myself in one avenue. I want to be able to touch all the parts of the process. And
Hmm.
especially, I think that works especially well with skills that complement each other, right? Like video, photo, graphic design, copy, all those things kind of tie into this really valuable asset. So, yeah, I've just never felt comfortable or at rest with the idea of specializing in just one thing and pursuing that thing only.
Yes, because I think that implies that it is work, when in reality you can make, maybe this is too far fetched and bold, but I want to try to make it a reality. I
Mhm,
want my entire life to be play that
mhm,
looks like work to others. And
mhm,
for me, like when I'm doing this podcast, talking to you, or like writing a thread, or like even hitting the gym or playing sports, like I feel like I'm playing all day long. And
mhm,
when I have to go do stuff that I don't want to do, then it feels like work. Like when I have to go to school and like write a paper, like that feels like work. So I
mhm,
think the long term goal would be like just play all the
mhm,
time.
mhm,
And I think like I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on this, especially coming from a video photo perspective. Like
Mm-hmm.
with AI potentially automating a lot of our daily work tasks, like, do
Mm-hmm.
you think that it could actually be a positive in a way that we won't have to do this grueling day-to-day like labor work
Mm-hmm.
and we can focus on getting back to our natural playful state? Have you thought about that at all?
Hmm. I haven't thought about that specific like side of it. Let me think about that real quick. Hmm.
Or I guess I'll change the question a bit. Like, how do you envision AI
Mm-hmm.
affecting like video editing and
Hmm.
photography?
Hmm. I think AI is going to wipe out like the low level editors who are just doing, who are not in charge of any creative decisions, but are just, cutting clips up, putting them up together. But I think those people who just do that for editing are becoming more rare because nowadays, usually an editor has a lot of creative input into how a video should go.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it really depends on the kind of content that you make. If you're just compiling clips from the internet and doing like highlight reels, yeah, an AI could do that easily, right? It would just find the best performing videos, cut it up. It would know how to paste a video to match someone's attention span, and it could do that a lot better than people. But I think for creators who are making things that are genuine and that are tied to their own authentic personalities, AI is actually just going to help them make better videos. Yeah,
Mhm.
I think AI is going to benefit people who are on the right track, and it's gonna further harm people who are lazy and sloths and who don't want to do the work.
That's an interesting perspective. I kind of agree with you there. So it seems like the takeaway, at least for video and photo, would be like all that really remains is the creative aspect to it. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the same would go for writing as well, because if you just type into Chat GPT, like write me an article about like good habits like to build muscle, it can
Mm-hmm.
give you some really good tips, but
Mm-hmm.
anybody could do that, right? So what's going to separate somebody from another person? It's going to be their unique, authentic personality. And
Mm-hmm.
that's, I can already see you tapping into this in terms of your bio, like from when we first talked. Cause I
Mm-hmm.
think at first it just said like video editor for Dickie Bush and Nicholas
Mm-hmm.
Cole. But now it says all these different things like talking about manhood, habit building tools, like media
Mm-hmm.
leverage, like video editing.
Mm-hmm.
So by you being more authentic to who you are, you're actually raising your value because you're such a multifaceted person. So I kind of wanted to get into that bio um, in terms of like habit building tools. What do
Mm-hmm.
you mean by habit building tools? Is that like
Mm-hmm.
daily habits or what?
I think so. My whole life, I've always loved productivity, and I totally went down the rabbit hole of Ali Abdallah, Matt Diavella, and just trying to find the perfect productivity system. And like you can ask any of my friends, and it's like, oh, like Juan's always gonna bring up some sort of product or some software that he found, and it's like
Yeah.
I just love talking about it. And it's because I just think the idea of optimizing your life to just be more efficient, more effective, to leverage our tools better is it's like the never ending quest, but it's so fun for me. Um,
So what's your
and
routine look like right now? Because I know you're balancing a lot. Like you're still a full-time college student, you're writing
mhm,
on Twitter, you're
mhm,
a full-time editor for one of the biggest guys on Twitter. Like,
mhm.
how are you balancing all this? What's your daily routine?
So last semester was kind of like it was all over the place because I was taking 6 classes and I was doing like 20 hours or more for Dickie, and I just did not know how to structure everything. So I prioritized Dickie over school for sure. Like I really
Yeah,
wanted to make sure like okay, like I'm going to give this guy my absolute best. I can always turn in a late assignment at school. I can't turn in a late video, you know.
yeah,
But this semester the approach that I've been taking is I want to make sure that all my pillars, right, my health, my spirituality, my my mental health, my learning ability, my work is it's all balanced. I never want to
yeah.
be, too much weight on one side because last semester I treated everything like a sprint, right? I would
Mm.
not study for a week and then the night before just cram. And same thing, like even for a few Dickie videos, I was up to like, 3 in the morning just editing the videos. And it was just this very hard to sustain pace. And my approach this semester is how can I move the needle, right? 1% every day in all of those different aspects. So make sure I reach hypertrophy every day with even if it's just one muscle group, right? Make sure every day I'm, getting my 10,000 steps in. Make sure every day I'm reading a chapter from a book. So I'm feeding my mind and learning every day. Make sure I'm at least writing 1,000 words so I can get the muscle down every day. Spending time in the Bible every day. I'm talking to people. So just every day moving the needle forward. And I think that's just so much easier to sustain over a long period of time.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it. And it sounds like these are kind of like some minimum habits or like some non-negotiables that like every day at least I'm going to hit these couple things. So do you track those? Like
Mhm.
do you write those down?
I used to, be super meticulous about habit tracking. And
Yeah.
bro, so I've gone from like, just pen and paper to tracking everything in Rome, Notion, Obsidian, trying to craft the
Mhm.
perfect system, back to pen and paper. Like I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's very easy for me to overcomplicate things, especially with all this software. And end of the day, I think what I realized is what's going to get me to do this habit today is not my streak or is not checking it off the box, but it's doing the habit. So
Yeah.
I've kind of started to put less importance on tracking it as much and just making sure that every day I do it. I don't know if that makes sense.
It completely does because we've gone through the exact same thing. This past school year, so actually this past September to December,
Mhm.
fall quarter of school, I was meticulously tracking everything, dude. I had this giant whiteboard on the wall in my room, in my dorm
Uh-huh.
room, with like 20 things that I wanted to make sure I did every day. And
Mhm.
I would obsess over them. And if I didn't hit one, I'd be like, fuck, like I messed up.
Mhm.
So I would like have on there like meditate, like read for 30 minutes, like write this many tweets, like run, lift, all
Mhm.
these things. And it became a bit obsessive to track them all for sure. And it starts to wear on you. I
Mhm.
remember like some of my friends would come in my room and see like this whiteboard with all this shit. And
Uh-huh.
they're like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, are you good? And I'm just like, this is kind of just how I operate. But
Mhm.
I've kind of switched back to what you're saying with like, I'll write out a couple things that I really want to get done on pen and paper. But
Mhm.
in terms of the other habits, like going to the gym or getting 10,000 steps or eating clean,
Mhm.
instead of meticulously tracking it, like checking off a box and just getting it done every day,
Mhm.
I want to just change my identity to the point where I'm just the type of person that does these things.
Yep.
Like rather than checking off, oh, I went to the gym today, it's like I just go to the gym because that's who I am.
Mhm.
And it sounds weird and it sounds like that's not much of a difference, but I think once you change your identity to like you just kind of trick yourself into saying like I am this person and then you just do the habit like by nature.
100%, dude. I totally get that because yeah, because when you have these super long streaks built up, if you miss a day, it like kills you, bro. Like I would get so bummed just staring at
Mhm.
that, blank square on my habit streak. And it's
Yeah.
like, a day here and there, it's fine. Like end of the day,
Yeah.
like I know why I'm doing what I'm doing, but you're totally right, bro. Like the moment you embrace, like, yeah, I am a writer. I write, I
Yeah.
work out,
Yeah.
I am that person. You just start to do it because you love it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like it takes a while to get to that point where you actually really believe what you're saying. So like
Mhm.
for me to say I'm a writer 2 months ago, even it would have felt
Mhm.
like a fraud saying that. But now it's like, yeah, I'm a writer. Like this is what I do. And
Mhm.
then it's just everything is so much easier once you change your identity.
Mhm.
I'm glad to hear that you had a similar experience because I thought for a while I was fucking insane. Because I was just so meticulous, so obsessive about these habits.
Dude, no, I get you, bro. Like, yeah, I was like, it kind of frustrates me how much time I wasted just trying to craft this perfect system to be the most optimized human being alive. And
Yeah.
it's like, I mean, yeah, you want to balance, right? You don't just want to chuck it all away and do nothing, but like that's just yeah. I mean, and Dickie says this over and over, right? It's just like it's just productive. No, what is it? It's procrastination disguised as productivity.
Hmm.
And I was so guilty of that. And now it's like, bro, and I think something that helped is something about school because school is so busy and like I really have to be intentional with my time if I want to achieve all those things. Whereas before my schedule was a lot lighter, having that pressure, it's like, okay, I don't have time to waste on building these things. I just have to sit down and get the work done.
Exactly. Especially when you're balancing school like this, because if video editing and Twitter was your full-time job, like you could have a lot of time to do that. But when you're
Mhm.
trying to balance these other things, like you really have to cut out the bullshit, is what I've noticed. Like those 30 minutes that I would have spent like scrolling Instagram, like, no, I cut that out. Like, let's just get to work.
Right.
And so I'm curious, like, you're in your first year of school still, like
Mhm.
technically, right? Because you took
Yes.
a gap year,
Yeah. 2 gap years.
2 gap years. Okay,
Mhm.
so you're probably set to graduate 2026. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, I'm curious, like, what are you thinking about these next 4 years of school? Like, are you gonna try to stick it out?
Mm.
Are you
Dude,
you thinking maybe like just see where it goes?
at this point, so growing up, I've always tried to plan everything out a few months ahead and just been super obsessed about, what do I want my future to look like? And what I've realized is the more tightly I hold on to these plans I've built for the future,
Yeah,
usually, I mean, no, not usually, always, they always go differently than I expect.
yeah,
So it's I don't I'm pretty cautious about saying, oh yeah, like my goal is to do this and that by this time. I know my direction, right? I know where I'm headed, but I have no idea what that's gonna look like. And I'm thinking about switching my degree from entrepreneurship to Bible because entrepreneurship, like as fun as it is, I feel like I learn entrepreneurship better just by reading books and by
hmm,
building my own stuff. And it's so much
exactly.
more fun. The classes I'm in, as good as they are, it just feels slow.
Hmm.
Whereas, the school I'm in has a fantastic Bible department, and I love learning about the Bible. So my time at school will be so much better leveraged if I was, learning that instead of entrepreneurship, which I'm already driven to pursue on my own time. So I'm thinking of possibly switching majors next semester, but yeah, like just depending on how things with Dickie go, depending on how my own audience grows. I'm dating this girl right now. Depending on how things go with her, I don't know if I'll stay in school all 4 years or drop out at some point and maybe keep going later to get my degree. But I'm kind of just like, bro, like taking it a month at a time, just
Yeah,
seeing what God has in store.
I like that approach because I think we have a tendency to like get really attached to like this plan we set.
Hmm.
Um, there's this Charlie Munger quote that's coming to mind. It's like treat your ideas as tools. Like
Hmm.
you wouldn't get attached to a tool. You would just
Hmm.
use whatever tool was best for that moment. And so like I've had a similar experience. Like I was getting really attached to this idea of living in Iowa State with my friend Tyler this summer. Like, and I
Hmm.
was really attached to the idea, but things always change. Like that is so far in the future. Things change in the present. You have to be able to pivot and adjust. And like once a new idea comes, okay, we'll use that rather than getting attached to these ideas.
Hmm.
And so yeah, 4 years, 4 years is a long way to plan. I mean, in a month, a lot can change. Like,
Yep.
especially in this online stuff, like stuff can change so fast, is what I'm noticing. So
Yep.
yeah, I completely feel you there. Yeah, college is I think it's good to hedge your bets also. Like you never know what's going to happen with the creator stuff, the personal brand stuff. Like we're
Hmm.
very optimistic, you and I, because we might be biased. Like we're in it, we want it to succeed, but you
Right.
never know what's going to happen with social media. You never know what's going to happen with Twitter or anything. So it's always
Exactly.
good to have a couple different moves in the chessboard, and a
Mm,
college degree. It can't hurt. I would say it can't
right.
hurt.
And that's so wise. And that's something that it took me a little bit to internalize because when I first, when things with Dickie were ramping up, I met up with my advisor and I told him about it and he was super stoked to hear it. And he told me, like, I get that you might be tempted to drop out, he said, and if you did, I wouldn't blame you. He said, just make sure you take these classes before you drop out because those are gonna help you. But he
Mm,
said, it's wise to, he said, shorten your school load. Don't take as many classes. Focus on giving Dickie like your best work. And just in case, things with the creator economy don't go as planned, you still have school as a backup, right? Don't
mm.
just go all in, just like you said, hedge your bets. And I thought, yeah, I mean, that's so true because with the speed of social media, right? Things can either change for the better or for the
Yeah.
worse. So I think that's super wise to do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we're in a similar headspace there, which is cool. And I know a lot of guys around our age that are on Twitter are like in this weird transition period where
Mhm.
like, damn, we're still in college, but like we're tempted to like just go and move on with our lives. But
Mhm.
at the same time, we're 21, we have time. Like sometimes like I need to remind myself that like, okay, we're still very early into all this stuff. I've only been on Twitter for 4 months. So like,
Right.
yeah, stuff is so new. Um,
Mhm.
last thing I wanted to talk about this too. So in your bio, you said
Mhm.
talking about one of the things was manhood. So
Mhm.
can you explain that to me? Like, where does that come from?
Yeah, for sure. So I feel that's like the pillar in my little creator journey that I haven't touched I haven't touched a lot the past few weeks, and I'm still trying to figure out how I want to go about it because I love accounts like Art of Purpose and Save Your Sons. We just talk
Mhm.
about, raising families and just being a man. And I feel like masculinity has been just completely just lost in today's society. And recently I've just been very aware of the fact that so much of who I am is a result of who my dad is. And without even
Mhm.
being intentional about it, my behavior is so shaped by my dad. And that just leads me to think when I have kids, right? If I have kids, they're gonna be who I am. Not exactly, but in my mannerisms, the way I approach work, I approach school, the way I approach life, they're going to look up to that and take on those traits. And it's just had
Mhm.
me thinking, I need to make sure I am the best man I can be
Yeah.
for my future family. And I'm just really passionate about that, but I guess I haven't been super vocal about it on Twitter, but I'm trying to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I love it. And to be thinking about things like that, like at 21, like thinking about like your kids someday, like that's some perspective for sure.
Mm.
It's weird because when you're a kid growing up, like even in the past couple of years, especially at college too, I don't know if you feel this, but anytime you talk about masculinity or like embrace masculinity, it feels like you should feel bad about it for some reason. But you should,
Mhm.
I don't think you should at all. Like we should tap into our masculinity because strong men are able to raise great sons and daughters that are going to do great things for society. But if we
Mhm.
don't embrace that part of ourselves and we just shun it off and say like, oh, it's toxic, like it's so dangerous, dude. It's a slippery slope.
It is such a slippery slope, bro. And it's like, yeah, I mean, men are different than women. And I think like embracing that truth and like living it out to its full extent, like the the men that I look up to the most are the manliest men, right? They are
Yes.
like they are so unlike a woman that it's like, well, I respect you and I look up to you a lot because of how you exhibit that manliness, right? And like a trait that I've seen a lot recently in men that I admire is meekness. Like they're they're really they're strong, right? You can see that they have power, right? They could kill a guy if they had to, but at the
Mhm.
same time they're so gentle and kind and humble, right?
Yes.
It's like that balance of power and humility, and like the men that I look up to the most have that trait, and that is exactly what I want to be.
That's awesome. I haven't heard that word in a long time, meek, but
Mhm.
it's such a good word, and it's something to aspire to be like.
Mhm.
Like Jordan Peterson says it best. He's like, you should be a monster, but then know how to contain it
Mhm.
because you want to be capable. You want to be capable of standing up for yourself, for your family,
Mhm.
for your community. And
Mhm.
you're not going to do that being a timid, weak guy. And I felt
Mhm.
that in the past. Like I felt like unconfident and timid, but we need those male examples to make us feel like, oh, it's okay to be a man. It's okay to be confident. It's okay to speak your mind. It's okay to be strong. And it's
Mhm.
interesting how you say like all the men you look up to are like extremely masculine men. And now that I think about like a lot of the people I look up to, like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Huberman, Joe
Mhm.
Rogan, like these are men's men. Even my dad too. Like you
Mhm.
said, like my dad had a huge impact on who I was as a kid and who I'm becoming as a person.
Mhm.
And I think a strong father figure is
Mhm.
so important for a young man to have. And it doesn't even necessarily have to be your own dad, too. You can take inspiration from these guys on YouTube, from these guys on Twitter. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I love that stuff.
Dude, yeah, I feel like they are truths that have been lost to
Mhm.
society today, and it's just a bummer to see it. So
Why do you
I
think it's been lost?
my default answer would be sin. I think just like our society is sinful, and like people, and the Bible talks about this a lot, how everyone is just rebellious and everyone's rebelling against God's creation. And God created men and women, right? That's the way he created things to be. And the natural thing for people to do, right? People who have, a corrupted nature, is to do precisely the opposite, right? And men who want to be like women and women who want to be like men. I think that's like the root cause of it.
Interesting. Yeah, it is interesting. I've been reading a bit more recently about like masculinity and femininity and how
Mhm,
like the polar opposites attract. There's a great book called The Way of the Superior Man. I don't know if
mhm,
you've heard of it, but it's a great book and it just talks about like tapping into that masculine energy and like not
mhm,
feeling ashamed about it because
mhm,
so often I think we're supposed to feel ashamed about it by like society or by school. Like
mhm,
you don't want to be like that jock like asshole guy, but
mhm,
you don't necessarily have to be the asshole guy if you are masculine. You can be that masculine guy who's also extremely kind and loving and sweet. And so,
mhm.
yeah, it's that balance, dude. It's so important.
Right. Like that, and I think that is that's such a OP combination, right? Like there's this guy I look up to a lot. His name is Vodi Bakum. He's a pastor. The dude is massive, like built, jacked out of his mind. He's
Mhm.
also a fantastic scholar. He has a PhD, I don't know in what. He's written a bunch of books about like critical race theory and the Bible. The dude has like 8 kids. He lives in Zimbabwe with his family. He's homeschooled all of his kids. The dude is always like lifting, always benching, squatting, posting on his Instagram. He owns a Brazilian jiu-jitsu school in Zimbabwe, and he's like
Yeah.
a third degree black belt. Like you look at this guy, and this guy could kill you in a second, but
Yeah.
he is so like just wise and humble and kind, and it's like, oh my gosh, man, like that's all I want to be, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Those are such interesting people to look up to. The guys who are just like out of their mind jacked, but at the
Mm-hmm,
same time, like such like sweet, kind people.
mm-hmm,
I put out a thread the other day about like traits of a Renaissance man, like a modern
mm-hmm,
day, well-rounded Renaissance man. And I think it's interesting that a lot of guys our age are like striving to be this well-rounded man. So like
mm-hmm,
picture yourself at 30 or
mm-hmm,
35. Like, what do you want your life to look like? Like,
mm-hmm,
and who do you want to be?
mm-hmm. That's interesting. Okay, so I my goal is to be like, yeah, Renaissance man both digitally and physically. Like I
Mhm.
want to be able to move around effortlessly in the online space, right? Have skills when it comes to video, photo, graphic design, copy, just interacting with people online, but also just like know how to build things, how to fly fish, how to hunt, how to
Mhm.
cook, how to fight. Just all like combine all these traits and be able to do all of them well. And yeah, I just picture myself living in like a big house, not too big, with like a lot of
Yeah.
kids, like a lot of nature around me, and just like enjoying that balance of the digital lifestyle and the natural lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that. And it's like you can really balance it, I think, with online space. Like look at Dan Coe. He works for a couple hours a day. And then he's
Mm-hmm,
just able to exist in the real world and like go on walks and do whatever he and go to the gym and do whatever he does. And that's
mm-hmm,
all comes down to personal preference. But like I aspire to have those same characteristics, like being able to be in the online space and make a living from it, but at the same time, like learning how to fight or like learning a language, a new
mm-hmm,
language. I'm trying to get better at Spanish or like just becoming like in the best shape you can possibly be, like
mm-hmm,
raising a loving family. Like it's so interesting how we all have these same aspirations. And so,
mm-hmm,
I think this creator stuff, I hope it's the ticket there. It may not be. We might have to pivot, but I
mm-hmm,
think having like something to shoot for like that, it's
mm-hmm.
so important.
100%, dude. Dude, if you ever need help with Spanish, let me know. That's my first language.
You're fluent?
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
fluent.
first language. No
Yeah.
way.
So I was born in San Diego, and then my family moved to Colombia, South America, and
Okay.
I grew up there. I lived 16 years of my life there. So Spanish,
Wow.
I just grew up speaking Spanish.
And when did you start speaking English?
So when I was 9, we moved to San Francisco for a year because of my dad's job, and I did third grade here in San Francisco, and I really picked up English then. And when I came back home, once we moved back to Colombia, it was hard for me to watch movies in Spanish or read books in Spanish. Like I liked English so much more, so I would watch English movies, read English books, and I would talk in English with my family. So it just kind of stuck.
Yeah.
So I've always kind of spoken it a little bit.
Damn, that's so cool. Yeah. I would definitely have to have like maybe some calls in Spanish. I'm a bit rusty. I'm not gonna do it on the podcast and embarrass myself right now, but I need to get back into it. Maybe this summer. I was
Dude,
actually gonna
for
ask,
sure.
what are you thinking like in the next year? I know we were talking about 4 years, you don't exactly know, but like
Mhm.
in the next 6 to 12 months, like what do you envision going on in your life?
So next 6 to 12 months, I would like to start a newsletter, and start doing that consistently. Like I read yours, I read Matt's, and I love reading other people's newsletters. I just
Yeah.
have to sit down and figure out what value am I going to provide to people, and then just start doing that. So it'd be nice to have a newsletter. Hopefully, get to 10K on Twitter. That'd be
Yeah.
freaking sweet.
Yeah.
And I would like to have a, let me see. Yeah, either set up some consulting for video, like some video strategy consulting, or make a video course. I think at least to my knowledge, second half of the year, we're gonna pick things up again on YouTube with Dickie, because the first six months of this year, they're gonna be like focusing more on type share, on just like building their newsletter. So I know second half of the year they're gonna ramp it up, but I would like to have a decent amount of monthly income coming from my own personal brand in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, becoming self-sufficient is
Y-
the goal for sure.
Yes.
Like it is cool to be a freelancer and to make
Hmm.
money like editing for them, but
Hmm.
eventually getting to the point where like you can do everything yourself. Like I think
Hmm.
that's one of the traits I aspire to be like is being completely self-sufficient and being able
Hmm.
to make money completely
Hmm.
on your own, not reliant on any other guy or girl or anybody.
Right.
Um
And it's like it's a balance, because I don't want to, yeah, like my goal is not to take on any more clients. Like
yeah.
just focus on Dickie, focus on Cole, and just like give them everything I've got, and just focus on these aspects of my brand as well. Because it's so easy to chase the next shiny object. So as long as I'm
Yeah.
focused on those two things, those two avenues, yeah, it'd be nice to have kind of my financial situation figured out by the end of this year. I don't want to make, my goal is not to make a ton of money. I know that's like Hormozy's goal. He just wants to make ridiculous amounts of money. I just want to make enough money to support a family, and that's
Mhm.
it. Because I feel like climbing from like the money that you need to just having more money in excess, that just leads to, you know, more opportunities and more temptations to spend that money that I wouldn't necessarily want.
Right. And it's not necessarily going to raise your happiness going from, let's say like 10K a month to like 20K a month. Like, yeah, maybe you will have a bit more financial security, which is always good, but at the
Mhm.
same time, like anything else, it's just you're going to be buying more stuff and like I don't know, materials in the long run aren't going to make you happy. Like a
Mhm.
loving family, like a fit body, that's
Mhm.
what's going to make you happy. Freedom over your time. Um
100%.
yeah. Last thing I was going to ask you before we hop off, like, what are you
Mhm.
doing this upcoming summer? Most kids, most college kids are like working part-time jobs, like thinking about getting internships, etc. But like, what are you
Mhm.
thinking?
Let's see, this summer, it's actually kind of funny. I would love to get a job as a waiter, back in my hometown. Uh,
Okay.
I've always worked in online space, and I freaking love doing what I do. But something about being a waiter and just having to deal with conflict in different situations on the fly, and just talking to people all night long, just moving around. I've always had a desk job. Um, I for some reason that job just seems so appealing to me. So I would love to just not even for the money's sake, but just for getting that skill of dealing with conflict on the fly, and like, being a part of a restaurant. I think that'd be so fun for
Yeah.
just like a month. I would love to do that for a month. Uh, it'd be freaking sweet to go to South America. I know me and a few of my buddies want to go to Costa Rica, but also with you guys, we are thinking about possibly going to Argentina for a little bit. That would be nuts. And
Yeah.
just like work on online business, just go to the gym, probably hop on some BJJ classes.
Yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
yeah, just double down on creating. That'd be the optimal summer for me.
That sounds sweet. And I would say like being a waiter, it will teach you a lot about interpersonal skills and like managing high stress environments. I was a waiter this time last year.
Hmm.
I've been a waiter a couple different times, but it is fun. Like if it gets really busy, you're having to run around, like hold six different tables in your head at the same time. And
Hmm.
it's weird because it seems like a job that wouldn't translate at all. But having those interpersonal skills and like dealing with people that are frustrated at you. They're like, where's my food? But like,
Mhm.
you have to be able to manage conflict like that. And I think it teaches really good social skills and performance under pressure. So,
Mhm.
and it's fun. It's fun too. It's fun
Yeah.
talking to people all day.
Right. It's see, like, being busy and like just working, I would much rather have a summer where all my days are packed into the brim of just work and, lifting, all these things, reading, creating, as opposed to days where I'm just lounging around, just
Mhm.
playing video games on my phone. So like any way that I can fill up that time and further develop those skills, even if it's not for money, I'm all for that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that mindset. And we're gonna have to talk more about like this South American thing for the summer because I think that could be sweet, bro. It could be 3 months of insane growth. A bunch of
Heck yeah, bro.
guys on the self-improvement grind in the online business space, just grinding together. I think we'd raise each other up like crazy. But
100%.
we'll have to keep talking about that. It's still a ways away.
Hmm.
Well, sweet, dude. This was awesome. I think it's a good place to hop off, but I appreciate you hopping on. Is there anything you want to plug before we hop off?
Ooh, anything you want to plug? Yeah, follow me on Twitter at Juanico, 2 underscores. I talk about media leverage, I talk about habit building tools and tech, and I talk about manhood. And very soon I'll be launching a newsletter and just sharing the things I'm learning and the things that I find valuable. So as of right now, that's about it, man. Thanks for having me on. This was super fun.
Yeah, dude. I'll link all this stuff below too, but I appreciate you. We'll have to do this again for sure.
100%, 100%, bro.
All right. Thanks, bro.
All right, my
Peace.
man. You take care.